Morning. Good afternoon. There are three things that I'd like to say about feminist ethics that I think are worthwhile in terms of evaluating the theory. One is positive and two are sort of negative. So the first thing that we should say is that to some extent, every single person has to be engaged in flexibility so that you can maintain your relationships. Like if you're driving down the road or if you're in the passenger seat and your friend's driving 80 miles an hour and you pull out your phone and you call the cops on your friend, tell the cops that your friend's going 80 miles an hour, and you say, well, Immanuel Kant would want me to report every illegal activity. If that's the way that you approach things, you're just not going to have many friends at all if you're never willing to be flexible and break at least some small moral rules for friendships to prioritize those loved ones. It's just not going to work out. So the ethic of care has, I think, provided some insight to morality that our relationships, and we said this as an attack on utilitarianism, that our primary relationships do sometimes require us to place them above certain principles. Not all principles, certain principles. So that's the positive. There are actually three critiques. I said two, but I'm actually going to say that there are three critiques. The first major problem is that we can't bend these rules too much so that we violate justice. You can't say, I'm going to lie to the cops even though my son killed an innocent person because I want to maintain my relationship with my son. That's just not the way the world works. It's not the way morality should work. And most women, I think, don't in fact believe that they should be so flexible that they don't have any moral principles. So the ethic of care is a bit too flexible. Second issue, this is not something that is confined to women. Men also use the ethic of care. Throughout the history of the world, male, hegemony has been illustrated by men taking care of other men first. Like that's what sexist male hegemony power has been about. Instead of abiding by rules, you hire your friends and you put your friends first and you put those close relationships first. So to think that only women prioritize relationships and that men are these sort of robotic rule followers is just flat out not true. Men also use the ethic of care and have used it, so to speak, to a fault to care primarily for those that they prioritize. So this is not a black and white gender issue. Second issue. Third topic is the one I want to explore today, and you're going to do it through two readings. And it's that the ethic of care initially is an attempt to validate the unique perspective that women have, which is that caring and prioritizing relationships should come before moral principles. And that seems like a good thing. But the problem, and a lot of feminists actually bring this critique out, the ethic of care reinforces negative gender stereotypes. And it does this in two ways. One, by making women seem like they want to bend rules to maintain relationships because they fear abandonment, they're encouraging passivity. Women have been encouraged in our culture to be passive, to not speak up for their needs and their desires. And that's a huge issue. And it's a huge issue for this theory that it encourages women to not take strong stances on things so that they can maintain their relationships. Well, feminists say, listen, I want women to take strong stances on things. I want them to have strong opinions and lay them out regardless of the consequences. So we're going to look at the concepts of passivity, aggressiveness, and assertiveness, because assertiveness is a life skill for everyone, not just for women, but particularly a skill that needs to be encouraged in women. And there is right here a whole class that we could have, not just class period. I mean, in college, you could have a whole class on assertiveness and female assertiveness and aggressiveness and passivity. and the importance of it and the dynamics around these things. It's a huge topic. But I want to look at that, and I want to look on the flip side that men are encouraged in this picture to be robotic rule followers, which means that they're not very good at being empathetic. They're not good at feeling emotions. And this also is a huge issue in our culture because what we end up saying is that men really, the only emotion that's legitimate for a man is anger. And we know statistically that 1 out of 5 women is going to deal with domestic abuse in their lifetime. And perhaps part of that, social scientists believe, is the fact that men have never been taught how to deal with emotions in a healthy way or experience healthy emotions, which is summed up in the concept of vulnerability. So I'm going to ask you to do two things. I'm going to have you read the article on assertiveness and the article on vulnerability. And then I haven't made it yet. It's either going to be a Google question or it's going to be a Google form response, where I'm going to have you give your feedback on those two articles. And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you guys. Shoot, what was it? I can't remember, but we'll let it at that. Those two articles and the response, and then have a good long weekend. Thanks, guys.